500 years ago, the French king's ambassador, Philippe de Comines, went up the Grand Canal, the enormous question mark which winds its way through the heart of the city.
I believe it's the most beautiful street in the world. The houses are large and tall and built of good stone. The oldest ones are painted. The others, less than a century old, have fronts of white marble from Istries so richly adorned on their fronts. It's the most triumphant of all the cities I've seen.
By the end of the 15th century, Venice's period of grandeur had already passed. The serenity which had reigned over the entire Mediterranean had already begun its long decline.
But the city of Titian, Véronèse, and Tintoret would not flounder. It fed off its glorious past, attracting talents from around the world. Dickens, Mark Twain, Wagner, Thomas Mann, George Sand, and Hemingway, everyone wanted to discover Venice.
I quickly got an idea of the city's layout and went out without a guide, having in my mind an image of the city's labyrinth. Cut into myriad pieces by both large and small canals, it is brought together again by its bridges and overpasses. One cannot imagine how narrow and close the city seems to be if never having seen it. It is not uncommon to be able to measure the widths of the streets with one's outstretched arms. Of course, there are some larger, and here and there one finds a little square, but all things considered, everything is very narrow.
Goethe, curious, objective, and delighted to be in Venice, plunged into the city without fear of getting lost. Had he asked his way, he would have been told, "Sempre diritto, 5 minuto." Straight ahead, only 5 minutes. Straight ahead, only 5 minutes, as the bird flies, that is.
Venice is divided into 6 districts, which locals call sestieri. This administrative division of the city goes back to the 12th century. It's displayed on the ferro, the decorative piece on the bow of the gondolas. The 6 teeth represent the quarters of San Marco, Castello, Cannaregio, San Polo, Santa Croce, and Dorso d'Oro. The 7th tooth, on the opposite side, represents the island of La Giudecca. There are still a few squari, workshops where gondolas are made and repaired in Venice. The workshop of San Travaso dates back to the 17th century and is the oldest one of the city.
Gondolas were once of every size and color, and richly decorated. But a 16th century doge, fed up with this excess opulence, imposed an eternal coat of mourning upon the crafts. Since that time, they have been uniform in size, 11 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. They are covered with 7 coats of a black paint whose formula is a well-guarded secret.
The squari dedicate a great deal of their time to the general maintenance of the gondolas. Each of these crafts is worth a small fortune. Today, a workshop only builds 3 or 4 a year. "280 pieces of different types of wood are required to complete the asymmetric boat. It's designed so that the least amount of surface area will actually be in contact with the water. The building of these aquatic masterpieces carries on a tradition which was at its peak in the 15th century, when large building sites at the arsenal worked at full speed. These walls once held the West's largest building site. Both merchant and warships were constructed here. Warships were constructed here.
In the San Marco quarter, the Santa Maria Zubenigo church reminds us of the city's military past. Bas-reliefs showing naval battles and layouts of fortified cities are sculpted into the bases of the church's front columns. Battle would be waged more than once for these cities. To wage her wars, Venice hired on mercenaries, or condottieri, whom they generously paid in titles and ducats. The most famous of all was Bartolomeo Colleone, here immortalized by Verrocchio.
Colleone is bitter. He is filled with scorn, which is the most unforgiving of all sentiments. He turns his back with stiff, cutting violence. He cuts through the century, pushing back the crowd with a brutal jab of his elbow. We were right to put him in a solitary square.
But not on the square he wanted. In his will, Colleone had left the Republic 216,000 ducats if they would build an equestrian statue of him in front of San Marco.
It was unthinkable for the Republic to honor a stranger in such a way in front of the Basilica, right on St. Mark's Square. It was equally unthinkable to let the money slip through their fingers. In order to pocket the condottieri's money, his statue was built in front of St. Mark's, but not in front of the Basilica. It was built in front of a school bearing the same name, a charitable association in Cannareggio.